Well, good morning, Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Pittsburgh, um, on Zoom. I always say on Zoom. You get used to these different ways on Zoom. Well, thank you. First of all, I want to thank Reverend Mary Ann for inviting me, um, and grateful for the practitioner, for Kathy for doing the welcoming, and Linda for doing the introduction. Wherever Joyce is, we know that she'll be showing up at the perfect right time. Uh, the music is always good. Last time I was here, the music was magnificent. So whoever's in charge of the music, it is powerful. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. Um, when I show up, I always like to acknowledge the other people who show up with me, and those would be my ancestors. So usually my enslaved ancestors would be Peter and Elsie Littlejohn. My great-grandfather would be Alfred Littlejohn, and my grandfather would be Johnson, and his wife Elizabeth Littlejohn. So those are some of my ancestors, because I just don't show up here on my own. I always come with a lot of folks. So thank you for creating this space. So I want to share with you today about this whole idea of aging. And the topic is the power of actively aging. And I put emphasis on active aging because I just think most of us are not just laying on a log aging. I think we are doing things. That's my sense. So that's why I use that. And so there are several questions that I want us to be able to answer during our time together. One is, what are the stages of actively aging? And the other is how to get unstuck in actively aging process. So those are the questions I'd like for us to entertain as we move through our time together. Now, I want to start with my dilemma in this thing called aging. I've been in this process, in December will be almost 80 years. So I've been in this process for a while. And so one of the things that I find is uh, that I've been looking at the different stages that I go through. And the first stage was really that stage of what I call treading water. You know, when you're treading water, you're just sort of holding on, trying to figure out how things are going to be. It's like, how do I cope? So that's the first stage. So I've moved through that stage. I have been in the surviving stage for a while. And so what I want to do with you is to give you a sense of what the surviving stage is. And the dilemma for myself right now is I'm stuck in surviving. And the goal is, how do I now move to thriving? So that's been the piece that I've been working on. When I talk about surviving, I look at my life in terms of surviving. Surviving looks like I am so excited that I finally finished college. I took the tourist route. It took me 7 years to do that. Now, also, I flunked out of Howard, so that's still there too. I have to keep up with that. In this whole thing called surviving, I've had good corporate jobs. I've traveled a lot. I did partying in the mansions in Rhode Island. I've taken flights. I've done lots of things in the surviving piece. I've been visible and active in the community, always a community service person. I at that time, this was, if I give it time, it was probably somewhere around 1970 and 1984 in the surviving period. And in that period, it was all about looking good. I mean, that's really what surviving was. It felt like looking good. And I looked good now. I can tell you that right now. I always had high-end clothes and had a French seamstress, and I was driving a 320 I BMW, and I was very visible, was very social. Everything was going well. So that was called surviving. And at a point, I started to wonder, like, what else is there? Because even though I was living in surviving, I was depressed. It took all of my energy to get up on those mornings to put on those fabulous clothes and get in that BMW and go to that nice job. So something was not working, but I couldn't figure it out because, I was really looking at external goals. Everything was looking at external goals in this particular stage. And so I continued to be present to this whole idea of surviving because I figured there's got to be something else. This cannot be all there is. But for a while, I continued to be in that place. And one of the things, I am a searcher. So I started to go to workshops for personal development. I went to workshops at college, at American University, NTL, to learn more, all to try to figure out what's keeping me from moving forward. So I did a lot of personal development workshops. I did Outward Bound. I did Landmark. I did silent retreats, all kinds of things, trying to figure out why am I stuck here? What is going on? And so what I finally realized was that there was something else for me to get exposed to. So in 1993, I graduated from the American University program. And I was visiting a friend. And you know how you visit a friend and you go in their bath, they have a special bathroom, and right next to the bathroom, there's a basket of books. And so I love to read. So I picked up, what's the first book I picked up? The Science of Mind book. And I ended up taking that book and reading it from page to page. Something about it, it just got my attention. I just never, the pieces of it just, I'd never thought about the fact that I was whole and complete. And there was nothing I ever did that had me not be whole and complete. The thought never occurred to me. So this book was really a big opening for me. And of course, back in, those of you who've been around for a while know, at that time you could turn to the back and there would be a list of the centers. Some of you, I see some heads shaking, so some people know that, right? And so I saw that they had a Philadelphia center. And so the next Sunday I was back home in Philadelphia and I went to they call it Psalm Place. It was at the Holiday Inn on City Line Avenue in Philadelphia. And as I walked through the door, the song that was playing was "It's a Brand New World." And the person who was in charge was musician was Andrea Pickett. And it felt like a brand new world to me. This is a place I'd never been before. And the minister welcomed me and really said that there was nothing I needed to do to be whole and complete. Because up to that point, I thought that I had, had been not very good. I'd made some bad decisions. And so I figured that there were some, as they said, there were some spots on my record. So that's what I figured. And those Science of Mind just gave me a whole new perspective of what life is. And so you can imagine, I immediately enrolled in the foundation class and started to learn the principles and practices of Science of Mind. So that sort of really shifted my life in terms of how to move forward. Now, some of us, I'm going to transition from my circumstance to just see where you guys are. Sometimes I know in my trying to move, I would get stuck. And stuck looks like I keep doing the same thing over and over again, but looking for different results. Stuck for me was, like I say, I'm gonna do better by my money, and I do it for 2 weeks, and then I'm back to the same thing. Stuck was being really frustrated by not being able to get things done, by not being able to change, by not being able to do things that I really felt I wanted to do. Stuck was when I saw something I would say to myself, no, I can't do that. That's for young people. I'm too old. So I had all kinds of reasons that kept me stuck. So I'm sure nobody else has had any of this going on in their lives, right? Am I the only one here? I just want to make sure. I want to make sure I'm talking to the right audience, because if not, maybe I'm on the wrong. Anybody else have any of this happening in their lives in terms of being stuck? In terms of being stuck and really just trying to figure out, how do I move through this thing called aging? Because, up to this point, I thought aging I just was supposed to sit and let it happen. But when you say actively aging, that means that I have a part in this. And so one of the things I started to do was to look at some of the practices that I had gathered from my time with the foundation classes, and I eventually became a practitioner. Most things in my life have happened just a little strange. Like I kept asking Reverend Bruce, when could I take the practitioner class? And we didn't have enough people. And he said, well, Ruth, they don't let you have a practitioner class unless you have at least 6 people. And so 3 years we went through this, but I kept holding the space. And finally, he says, well, home office has come up with a new way to be a practitioner. They have people in Connecticut and New York. And so we're going to do it once a month, and those people will come together. So that's how I became a practitioner. So that part was very helpful. So as I continue to look at this whole idea of getting unstuck, how do I get unstuck? What Ernest Holmes tells us in a number of ways, he lets us know that age happens in our mind, not in our bodies. It's one of the things that he talked to us about. He talked about the power lies within us. So while I was looking for stuff out there, what Ernest Holmes tells us, the power lives within us. That's where the power is. The other thing he said, that I was never too old to set another goal or to have a dream. So all that stuff about age and oldness, I could release. The thing that got me, he said, was let go of what no longer serves you to make room for what truly aligns with your soul. Now that one was like bingo, that rang with me. That felt like it could help me move out of this place that I was stuck, which was in survival. And survival was really just only external. You notice everything was external goals. I was looking good, driving the right thing, all external goals. So nothing to do with internal. So that was the piece of letting go of what no longer serves you to make room for things that makes your heart ring. Now that resonated with me. That might have helped me answer the question, how do I get unstuck and move to the next stage? So I started off with that question, how do I get unstuck and move to the next stage of age? And I kept, how you vision on something and keep asking and treating. And I got that there was possibly some forgiveness that needed to happen. Let go of what no longer serves you. So in order to move to the next stage, it looks like there was some forgiveness that I needed to let go of. And as I looked, I still was I'm sure nobody else on this to do it. I was still beating myself up from flunking out of college. And I already had about 3 other degrees, but somehow that wasn't enough. So I was still beating myself up about that. I was still concerned about not being able to make changes, was the other thing that I was concerned about. So when I started to look at this whole, all the judgment and stuff I had, I really started to work with my practitioner and my counselor around forgiveness. Remember, Ernest is saying, let go of what no longer serves you and make room. And so my way of dealing with that was forgiveness. That the forgiveness felt like it was blocking me from moving from that space of thriving, getting to thriving. I was not getting to thrive. I was stuck in surviving. And so that was powerful for me, letting go. And when I say let go, forgiveness, all of us have gone through forgiveness. We've gone through all the class, so I know we know exactly how to do it. But I wanted to just sort of give a physical representation of this. Hopefully you can see. I'm the queen of props. Somehow I feel like I got to have a prop. Don't ask me why. Can everybody see this? Yeah? Can everybody see this? Yeah. Oh, good. So what I want us to imagine that this is our lifeline. And these knots are places in our lifeline that we don't forgive ourselves. So for me, I had a knot about flunking out of school. I had a knot of embarrassment. I was embarrassed. My self-esteem was impacted. I was angry about it. I was disappointed about it. So if you can imagine, this is my lifeline. Can you see that I wasn't getting much energy? There was not much space for anything else. And so one of the pieces of just being able to go through forgiveness, to take these knots out of my energy line, that allow me to be available to receive and move. And so that was really, really powerful for me to be able to do that. Now, am I the only one who has unforgiveness going on in their lives? I don't want to be talking to the wrong group here now. Anybody else got any unforgiveness going on? I'm just saying. So that part was really helpful for me because it allowed me to start to move into thriving. And so it was that part that helped me move. And when I talk about thriving allowed me to be more creative, to take more risks. It allowed me to have consistent practices. So not only my practice is consistent, it's almost like the American Express card. Like I don't leave home without doing my practice. That's how it goes. And so it really is that part of it that shifted when I moved to thriving, that I had a consistent practice. And that practice not only dealt with my mind, but I also dealt with my body. One of the things about, you remember Ernest Holmes was saying, it is our mind, but when we work on our mind, it also helps our body. So one of the things that I worked on with the body is that, I do yin yoga on the ground, which allows me to be, it allows, as a senior person, it allows me to be more flexible. I can hold a position for about 3 or 5 minutes. And so falling, some of us have a tendency to fall. I'm sure nobody on the line has fallen, but I'm just saying some of us have a tendency to fall. And yin yoga allows us to be more flexible and not break our bones when we fall. So that was one of the pieces that I was also doing. So looking at the mind, certainly meditation and treatment, the body with the yin yoga, and then just being connecting with spirit were the things that I found supported me as I moved into this new stage called thriving. Now, when I think about thriving in our lives, I like the quote from Maya Angelou, and she says, "Thriving, my mission is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." And so that was her idea of thriving. So as each of us think about moving from treading water, which is just coping in our aging, to moving to that space that we call surviving, which is usually making sure that all the external stuff is in place, and ultimately finding a way to move to thriving, where now we're able to have internal and external goals. We're willing to take risks, to make changes, to take on new opportunities. That's a place that has power. And so for me, that it feels good to be in that space. It means I get to do lots of things. I mean, one of the pieces for me right now is to really realize that there is a connection for those of us who are baby boomers. There's a connection, an opportunity for us to connect with the younger generation. And how do we do that? So that's a focus that I take on. How do I do that? So I'm constantly on, I call it a radio program to try to figure out, what's the language? Um, so those kinds of things, because I think as I think about what's going on right now, some of these young people are missing the pieces because they don't have the pleasure of our input. So that's a piece that's real important for me right now. And so as I think about this whole idea of aging actively, there are two things we need to keep in mind. One is we need to let go of the past. in order to have this happen. And the other is to forge our future, whether it's through visioning or whatever. So those are the two pieces that fall under that whole idea of aging powerfully, is really letting go of our future, our past, letting go of past things that have happened to us, set those things aside, creating more space, and be willing to forge with the future with all gusto. So those are the questions that we started off wanting to ask. How do we get unstuck? And then the other one is, how do we age powerfully? So the call to action is really for us to imagine you and I being willing to move through those stages. Imagine you and I being willing to forgive ourselves. How that would show up in our lives. What a difference that would make for our own personal lives, our family, our sinners, and wherever we're going. So that's the challenge for us right now. It's really to look at what does it take to move through the stages, and what do I need to do to let go of the past and move forward with the future. So I appreciate you listening, and I trust that you will use your imagination to imagine what that looks like. What does it feel like? What does it sound like in your center now that everyone is aging powerfully?